Some people think bleeding brakes on a 914 is like a dark art, and that getting a firm brake pedal requires some sort of magic. Well, it really doesn't. I mean, there are a lot of places for air to hide in the system on a 914, but if you have the right tools, a little bit of technique, and some patience, it really isn't that difficult. Now, there are lots of methods for how to bleed your brakes. Some people swear by the pump and hold system, other people like vacuum bleeders, speed bleeders, but they all do exactly the same thing, which is get air out of your brake system. And the reason why is because air doesn't compress like brake fluid does. And that's what gives you the spongy pedal when there's air in the system. I like to use the motive system, which is a pressure bleeding system, and that's what I'm going to show you today. All right, so we're going to put some brake fluid into the motive power bleeder. Nice thing about these is that you just fill it up, and you don't have to keep checking it as often. This motive bleeder runs about 60 bucks, and it's basically just a bottle with an adapter that allows you to pressurize the system, forcing fluid in and air out. This is dot 4, which is compatible with dot 3, but you don't want to mix dot 5 and dot 4 or dot 3 unless you want a nasty mess. First, you fill the tank, and you want to make sure that you do this with a good amount of fluid, probably 2 containers full. Now I'll put the top on, make sure it's nice and tight. So you see here, this is some saran wrap that I put underneath the cap, because when I was changing the soft lines, I didn't want brake fluid dripping out all over the place. And if you put saran wrap here and you cover this little relief hole, it'll keep the fluid from coming out, or at least as fast as it would if you didn't have it. So just got to be really careful with brake fluid. It's very corrosive and it will remove paint very quickly. So don't let it get anywhere you don't want it to be. And make sure it's clean in here. Also pull out the little screen. There's a little screen. Motive has lots of adapters depending on the make and model of your car. I'm using the European adapter here, and it seems to work for pretty much all of my cars. You don't make it too tight. So what we want to do here is just pressurize the system, and we'll start with just 5 pounds. There are some fittings in the 914 system that aren't really clamped, and you don't want to take a chance with too much pressure of blowing out a fitting. So we'll just take it up to 5 pounds. A little pump here. I'm just going to pressurize this to 5 pounds. Now we'll just let it sit for a second. It should hold pressure. If there was a leak in the system, you would just see the needle slowly dipping, but it's not. So there's 5 pounds of pressure in the system, and now we'll go and start to bleed. What you want to do is bleed the farthest wheel from the master cylinder first, and then work your way closer. So it's right rear, right front, and then left front. It's the same process for each wheel. First, we'll remove the right rear wheel. I like using these hangers so the wheel doesn't fall on my foot. Here's our tubing, and what we'll do is we're going to slip one end of the tube over the end of the bleeder screw there, and then this other end we're going to put in a bottle. So now that we'll take this 8mm wrench and we'll crack open the bleeder screw. And you can see that fluid's starting to roll through here. Can you see these bubbles that are coming through? What we want to do is we want to let this continue until there are no more bubbles. Now on this first wheel, I like to bleed it for a while so all the old fluid in the reservoir works its way out of the system. You may need to repressurize the bleeder if you're pushing a lot of fluid through. Check every once in a while to make sure there's fluid in the motive. Pressure will keep the reservoir full. So now it looks like the bubbles have stopped, and we're going to close up the bleeder screw. You don't want to go too tight with this and strip it. You will not be a happy camper. Now that you've got the right rear wheel done, all you have to do is the same thing for the other 3 wheels. Now, if you're installing brand new calipers, you may need to do some other stuff, but since this is 914 for newbies, I'm just going to assume that you're doing regular maintenance. All right, so we're done, and we need to remove the residual pressure from the system here, and you don't want to ever do it at the master cylinder. You do it here. Just gently crack this open. And now the pressure is relieved. All right, so we'll close it up so it doesn't spill. And you can see everything's kind of backing up through here now. So now we can remove the adapter from the reservoir. Again, making sure you don't spill any. Sometimes it'll be overfilled when you disconnect the unit, and sometimes it'll be underfilled. That's a little bit underfilled right now, so I'm just going to top it off. All right, that's plenty. If it were overfilled, what you would do is either use a syringe or turkey baster to pull fluid out of here, or crack open the left front bleeder and just let it bleed down a little bit more. So now we'll take the strainer, put the strainer back in, and a clean cap back on. We'll get that secure. Once again, if any brake fluid gets on any paint, you want to hit that with water and clean it up right away. Otherwise, you won't have paint. You should now have a firm enough pedal to take the car out for a drive, but definitely make sure you do before you take it out of the garage. I like to take the car out for 15 minutes or so on a bumpy road, then bring it back. I bleed all 4 wheels again, and then take it out. What you're looking for is to be able to lock the wheels up in a panic stop. If you can do that and the pedal is firm, you're done. Bleeding the brakes is something you should do as part of regular maintenance, probably no longer than every 2 years apart. And the reason why is because brake fluid is hygroscopic, which means that over time, the fluid will take water on. And as we talked about before, water doesn't compress like brake fluid, so your braking power will decrease. And also water in the system is not good because obviously you're gonna get rust. And the one thing you don't need on a 914 is more rust. Now I made this video to show you the process of bleeding the brakes, but if you are not confident doing this, please leave it to the pros. You do not wanna experiment with something as important as brakes. If you like the content on my channel, please subscribe, click the little bell so you know when a new video is up. Thanks a lot, be safe and enjoy.